We're on the third week, the Friday, the third week, and it's time to have a go. Michael's going to fit a Velux, second-hand Velux, one of three that I bought from a chap in the other side of Paris. Believe it or not, for €50 for the three. And actually, they all come with blinds as well. I thought I'm going to access the blinds as and when it comes to it because they're going to be quite high up. Certainly, the two in the kitchen are going to be quite high up as far as opening and shutting the blinds. And hopefully, I won't need to too often. It'd be nice to throw some light into the kitchen area. So, the thing with the Velux is, or with any roof windows, generally they're fitted from the inside out. So, rather than I had a couple of questions asked why I didn't fit the Veluxes first and then tile around them. I just find it's easier just to do the main area and then put your Veluxes in and put your frames in and all the rest of it. You could do it the other way, but it doesn't make a lot of difference considering you are going to be putting them in from the inside. I had a bit of luck with the first one because I'm currently standing on what is the ceiling of the kitchen, and it's only a couple of feet, 60, 70 centimetres from the height of the ceiling to the beginnings of the opening for the Velux. So it was fairly easy to work in. The same on the other side as well, the left-hand side, which will be the other Velux for the kitchen. A similar sort of thing there, so you're at comfortable standing height. The other two are going to be slightly more awkward because the one slightly higher than this one is there's a partition in the floor, and the floor drops from where the bedroom's going to be to where the existing kitchen ceiling is. It drops by about 45 centimetres, or about 18 inches. And it's the window there just above me is right on the join between the step down. So I might have to play around a bit with that. I think it's going to be too awkward just for steps, but we'll see. If not, I'll just move my trellis into position and work at it from that. So here I am. All of this is being done from memory, believe it or not. I still have some memory left in me at the grand old age of 61. I have fitted Veluxes in the past, quite a few times, to be honest with you, for clients and for myself. But it had been at least 8 years since the last time I'd fitted a Velux, and that was on the house in Normandy. That was a slate roof, not a tiled roof. The principles are all the same, really. It just depends on how high or low the profile is going to sit, depending on if you've got slates. The profile doesn't have to be overly high because the slates are fairly flat. And obviously, if you've got the engineered tiles, which are the big, horrible, sort of chunky tiles that people use these days, the profile tends to be a wee bit higher because the profile of the tile is higher. On this one, the brackets had already been fitted to the Veluxes, and I wasn't going to be playing around with it. I wasn't going to be bothering playing around with it. So they were just going to go in as they were going to go in. And as it worked out on this one, I found the profile was round about right. It's not sticking up too much. It's not sticking up too low. It's a Goldilocks Velux. It's just sitting right. So I put the window in, and then I'm playing around with it, trying to get the bloody thing out again. Having a bit of fun and games there, trying to get out there. The hinge is sort of on a hook. It's like a hooked hinge, and it sits into the frame. You're meant to offer the window up and see if it opens and shuts all right before you do all your fittings. And I thought I would do that, and it didn't make a lot of difference in real terms because I knew the roof itself was fairly flat. There wasn't too much variation in the gradients of the rafters. So after faffing about getting the window back out again, because the frame was only fixed with one screw and one bit, I could then set about fixing the frame in to the batten where it meets the rafters, because obviously you make a frame that's going to take the Velux, and you normally leave around about 40 millimeters either side, top and bottom and left and right, That's about 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches. It just gives you a little bit of leeway if everything isn't quite square. You can jiggle about with the frame to get it right. So the frame goes in and then gets screwed. So you've got brackets, you've got 4 brackets, one on each corner. You then screw through the batten and through into the rafter, so it's well held, so that you can then make a start on the flashing kit. And obviously, the flashing kit, you're going to start from the bottom and work your way up. The flashing kit on this was obviously used because the second hand. This was used with engineered tiles, so you can see the sort of ridges in the bottom apron there, because they would have wrapped that around. An engineered tile tends to have a profile. It's staggered. So what you do you don't want any great gaps underneath or between the flashing and the tile. So you tend to sort of work it around each ridge on the engineered tile. Now, obviously, I'm not using engineered tiles, I'm using plain tiles. So I've just had to flatten down this bit of apron as well as I could, so that it's not leaving too many gaps for insects and stuff to get into. So that's the first bit that goes, and then you've got a little cap that's going to sit over that, and that gets screwed in. And what that does then, that gives you weather protection for your first section. And there's 3 screws for that, one in the centre, 2 either end. And then once your window's closed, the window offers the extra bit of protection against the elements. So the first sections have been done. Then you're going to move on to the sides, because obviously you're working your way up the Velux. And these, again, all these bits are obviously second hand. So they just needed a bit of jiggery pokery where they've been flattened down. There's like a little groove that obviously will stop the water from running out of the side of the flashing and running underneath it to get through to the gap where the window is. And you've got one of these either side that's fitted. I think they're put in more or less dry. There's no fixings to that as such, but when you put the top section in, then that's then going to hold. In fact, you've got 2 other bits on the side that's going to hold. So I make a mistake here because I'm doing it from memory. I'm then putting the top section in, thinking that that's what's needed next, not realising that there's another 2 sections to be put in on the sides of the windows, which offers the same sort of protection that the bottom bar does, where it protects the apron. So I'm going to spend a few minutes now fitting the top bit of flashing, and then finding that I've actually fitted it prematurely, and I need to take that off and continue with the side bits. So old man, old memory. The grey matter's not quite working as it should do, and it's little mistakes like that we make as we go through life. So nothing too dramatic. But after, the great thing about this is I always find once you've done it the first time, then you know exactly for the second, third, etc., how it's going to be. Because so you iron out all your mistakes on the first one. It's the same thing whenever I've assembled kitchen units. So it's normally, a couple of years or so since I've fitted a kitchen unit. So you get the package and it's all in bits, and it takes you a little while just to get the first one together. And once you've got the first one, you think, that's it, that's the system, and then you crack on. So this is like the test area, and also I didn't have instructions. I couldn't be bothered to watch YouTube videos on fitting these things. I'd sooner just crack on and see how I get on with it. I did have some spare bits of flashing that I kept from the old Veluxes back in Normandy, because the more modern ones, the flashing kits are somewhat different to these ones. I don't know what age these are, but they're a fair old age. But I did check them over, and there wasn't too much water ingress around the timber, which is a good sign that they've been fairly watertight when they've been fitted. So Yeah, so I had some spare bits. If was needed, I would be able to fabricate something just to add on. But as it happened, with all three of those windows, it looked like everything was in reasonable nick and was usable. So I'm fitting the top section again. You've got two, like I say, you've got two side bits that then sit over your side flashings and offers protection over the wood and over the top of the side flashings. And there's a top box that then sits on top of those, which gives that protection. And then the final piece is the piece that then allows you to, that sits on the box, and that allows you to tile at the rear of the Velux, so that you're watertight effectively all the way around it. Then we come to fit. So you got the last bits going in. I'm sorry, the angle of the camera is not fantastic here. I sort of put the camera up on the trestles, but because it's only me working and it's only me filming, I have to just take a view. I can't be stopping and starting every 5 minutes to see how things are working out. So generally, I'll just tape a chunk of work, and then normally in the evening I'll have a look at it and think if it's any good or if I need to edit it down or speed it up or whatever. So I've tried to do the best I can with these videos, but in an ideal world, there'd be someone with a drone directly over the top and who'd be filming it, and you'd have a great sort of bird's eye view. Sadly, you haven't got that. You've got an old man's view of the window. So all the flashing's in place now, and then it's a question of tiling all the way around. So the underside is already done because the flashing kit sits over the tiles or directly underneath the bottom of the window. And then you're going to do either side. Again, you're just going to be working your way upwards. So a few of the tiles need cutting, or because invariably the gaps are never exactly where you want them to be. I made the openings really with the fact that I was replacing some of the rafters. So that was more of the precedent, and I knew roughly the height I needed and I wanted them to be. So it wasn't something, it's not something that's come off a plan and you measure off and say, right, that's going there, that's going there. It was more a question of where the new rafters have been replaced. That's an optimum opportunity to create a frame for a Velux. So that's what I've done. So there's a bit of messing about as far as cutting's concerned. Yeah, I've got a grind. I've got a 225mm grinder or a 9-inch grinder with a very good diamond blade on it. And it goes through these like a hot knife through butter. And like I say, generally it's going to take about 2 or 3 hours to fit the Velux and tile around it and put your window in place. And with that, then you're hopefully you're watertight from the outside. So here I am still playing around with the tiling, and there's some little half tiles that come in to finish not against the frame. There's about a 50 millimeter gap or a 2-inch gap between the frame and where the tiles want to end. Now, because that flashing kit is there, you can't with some of the tiles you can use a galvanized nail to put through there's 2 holes in the tops of the tiles that you can nail on if you need to, or you can use the nail as a hook to sit on the batten. I couldn't nail through the flashing, otherwise you're ruining the whole point of the flashing. So there's some instances there where there's a half tile going in and there's nothing at all to fix to. So what I've done is I've just used a bit of mastic in a silicone gun, and I've just put a blob on the top edge of the tile that's held in place so that it creates a kind of a lip for the half tile to sit on. And because it's on the edge of the tile, it should be enough that would almost create like a silicone hook, if you like, to hold that tile in place. And then the weight of the full tile that's going to sit directly above it, again, that has got a nail running through it, which sits at the back of the batten. So it's hooking onto the batten. It's not nailing into the batten. It's just hooking onto it, because you can't use the lip again, because you've got the profile of the flashing, which doesn't allow you to do that. I might have to do a video of that, because it all sounds, even when I'm saying it in my head, it all sounds a bit confusing. But it's actually more straightforward than it would seem anyway. Putting the tiling on, they did looking at it from your point of view. I'm looking at doing the right hand side, and then after I would cut for the left hand side, and finally it would be just the top section where it leads into the flashing. And again, there's possibly going to be a bit of cutting there as well. You want to leave probably 2 or 3 inch gap, or 50 or 75 millimeter gap between where the tiles finish and where the top end of the roof is. And normally in that top section of flashing, you've got like a padded section just to support the final tiles, a bit like the first batten at the start of the roof. Now the padded section had all deteriorated, so there was some polystyrene lying around in the garden. So what I've done is I've cut a couple of strips of polystyrene around about 25 millimeters thick, or about 1 inch thick, and I've just put 3 blobs of silicone, sort of one either end and one in the centre, just so that it gives it that bit of a lip to hold the bottom of the tiles, the first tiles that's going to go sit on top of the flashing kit, so that it doesn't drop down too dramatically there. It's just, you need to use, obviously people are going to be saying, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, but ultimately, as long as this roof works and it doesn't leak, then it doesn't really matter if you haven't got the proper bits and pieces. In an ideal world, money would be no object, and we would be buying brand new everything and da-da-da. But actually, this is quite good, because it's a second-hand Velux that was going to, what was it going to do with it? It's going to go down the tip. It's going to get recycled or whatever. It's got a fresh batch of life here at the house. You know, it's an old roof. It's an old Velux. But the two should work well in tandem with each other. And I just like reusing stuff. I just think this day and age there's way too much wastage in life. Things get thrown away that shouldn't get thrown away, and people can't be bothered to reuse something, or it doesn't look nice and neat and brand new, you know. But there's character to old things. Look at me, I'm old and I've got character. So the roofs are the same, the Velux windows are the same. As long as they've got their integrity about them, and that they still do the job that they were designed to do, then why not reuse it? And the roof to me, I think it's fantastic. It's my Hansel and Gretel roof, and it's superb. There's a lady did a little message saying she's a quilt maker, and it resonated with her just looking at sort of the design of the roof. And I thought, yeah, I get that straight away. Something I hadn't thought of, but yeah, obviously it's an entirely different industry and it's an entirely different technique as such, but the result is like this beautiful quilted tiled roof. So thanks very much to the lady that sent in that comment, and thanks to all of you that continue to watch an old boy mess about, you know, renovating an old French cottage in the Loire-et-Cher region of France, which is, if you didn't know, is Department 41. It's a town that sits between Le Mans in the west and Chartres in the east. It's about 2 hours from Paris by car. You can take a train, but sadly the nearest train station is about 40 minutes away from this particular town. At one time, the town actually had a rail line going through it, but a bit like in the UK in the 60s, lots of these lines were taken out of service, thinking that the car was the way forward now. And like the UK now, that's a decision that was badly taken, because it would have been far much easier and it would have been far more environmentally friendly rather, to have continued using the trains and not be reliant so much on cars, but obviously cars create a huge amount of revenue from petrol and diesel sales, and obviously governments care more about that than they do about people's general well-being. Anyway, little political rant over and done there. I'm still cracking on. The tiles are going up. The tiles are looking good. Mark the tiles with my pencil, nip off, cut it. Obviously, this is speeded up, so you're not got views gaps of nothing going on. Bit of silicon there. Like I say, you got the half tiles. You then got the tiles, which the need to take the lip off at the rear, and you can just add a nail, and the nail acts as a hook, so it goes through the hole at the top of the tile, and it then sits at the back of the batten, and it essentially hooks the tile in place, and the tile can move around freely, subject to weather conditions. But it's held. It's not going to slip. And these are galvanised nails, so they should outlast the tile. Unlike the other nails that had been used, which had totally rusted away, and the batten was literally just sitting on the rafters, more or less, without anything holding them other than the weight of the tiles. So getting near to the end of the first Velux, very, very pleased with that. Finishing off the final tiles at the top there, and then it's a question of then just slotting the window back in. So, like, so the window, you got these hooked hinges that you offer the window. It looks like you're offering the window the wrong way around, but it's actually how it works. And you offer the hinges in, and then you slowly start to close the window. You pivot the window around because these are pivoted on the centre, and the window should hopefully open and close freely, and there shouldn't be any vast gaps in between, because the section, the profile has been put in well, which it has on this one. Obviously, I'll show you. You'll be seeing videos of the Veluxes as and when they're all in place, so you can get an idea of what it looks like when it's all finished. But it was an interesting one after several years of not fitting Veluxes to fitting one yet again, and I like to think that the grey matter won in the end after the initial bit of mistake with the top section, which I'd forgotten about. I needed to put the side section in first, but all went well. I hope you found this interesting. As ever, thanks ever so much for all your comments and kind words and support. It means a lot to me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.